Hey guys, Luxker here. Xenoblade 3 has been out for almost 6 months now, and since a certain someone put up a video today detailing the Royal Summoner class, I might as well make one myself. Of course, I'm not an expert at a lot of the mechanics of Xenoblade 3, but I'll try my best to explain things in a pretty easy to use fashion. It's no secret on this channel that I like Melia. She is one of my favorite characters, best burb, best Xeno character, best everything. And her class in Xenoblade 3 is Royal Summoner, an attacking class that is all ether based with damage that goes up each time you use arts. However, people say that this class isn't very good because it doesn't have a high DPS like Seraph or Incursor. And even though a lot of it is true, that doesn't mean Royal Summoner has its uses. And we will go over this in this video. So if you like my voice or just like anything Melia or Xenoblade related, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and ring that notification bell. Anyways, let's get started. For this video, I'm using Taion as the Royal Summoner class because I believe he can use the most out of his high dexterity to have arts and elementals hit and do more damage. Even though Noah is the inheritor for Royal Summoner, it would make sense to put it on him, right? Well, Noah in general has pretty average stats and doesn't really excel at much besides being a great attacker. Though he will do a bit better damage than Taion in the long run, he would be very great at the kit. Same goes with Senna and Lance, who have the highest base attack in the game. They just don't have the dexterity to use the class to its full potential. Not saying they're awful at Royal Summoner and they can do pretty decently, but they aren't the most consistent for the class entirely. We'll start out with the skills, and for the most part, Royal Summoner's skills are honestly very worthwhile, especially for the kit of this class that is primarily ether-based. The class's best skill by far is Element Boost, a 20% at base to 40% at max rank boost to damage dealt during an elemental discharge, with a maximum of up to 400%. This is the highest damage cap in the game. You can do pretty insane damage with this when used in the correct situation. The downside of this skill is that you can't spam arts and get the additive boost that way. You must use Elemental Discharge and Element Genesis to be able to reach this maximum, which kind of sucks. But in super boss fights, it is well worth it to reach this high damage multiplier. The next skill is called Essence of Ether, another really good skill that is used as a master skill. It's a guaranteed boost of 20% at base to 30% to damage at max rank for the entire party, and lowers the enemy block rate 5% at base to 15% at max rank. It's a really solid skill to have on any attacker, especially to maximize damage output and make attacks hit harder. However, since Royal Summoner is ether based, the user in the class won't benefit from the lower block rate much because it goes right through it. But it's still useful to have on someone like Seraph that needs to do a lot of damage in order for it to be stronger. Now you would think this would be incredibly useful to have on every support or attacker class in the group because it'll make the damage extremely high. Well, unfortunately, this skill does not stack and you would only have to keep it on Royal Summoner to take full advantage of the skill. Which is okay though, because it frees up a slot in another attacker or support class that would have another useful party-wide skill that would benefit the whole party anyways. Overall, an awesome skill to have. Now the next skill is probably the worst part of the class and probably doesn't need to be on there in general, and that is Fortified Ether Guard, a general boost of ether defense by 10% at base to 20% at max rank for the class. Even though this might seem like it would help against enemy arts like Infernal Flame from Nizunt, this doesn't really help yourself on the team in any way, especially since ether attacks aren't very common to begin with. It doesn't really help the class from dying either because of how the class is built around attacking hard in general. As a master skill, it is one of the worst in the game because of how uncommon enemy ether attacks are, and it's best to find another worthwhile defensive skill in general like Swift Song, or even Antibody System for that matter. But don't worry guys, her last skill is honestly pretty decent for what the class uses. Here I shall stand boost elemental damage by 60% at base to 100% at max rank, on top of a boost of elemental buff effects by 30% at base to 50% at max rank. This makes spamming elementals much more rewarding because elemental effects without the skill are incredibly weak, as we will see in a bit. But having a 100% boost to your damage dished out from elementals can be pretty dang powerful, especially when you dish out all the orbs at once by using the talent art. Overall, a very useful skill to have that makes Royal Summoner be how it is. As for master skills, having a very fast recharge time is very important to be able to keep up and dish out elementals fast. So having Frenzy Combo for that increased recharge time on critical hits is a major benefit, especially since the arts are on a pretty long cooldown timer, which pairs well with Eye for Weak Points, which boosts the critical rate of attacks with each successful attack. Which is why Taion with his better dexterity stat will do a lot of damage very quickly to the more critical hits he will do. And then Critical Strike for a bonus 50% to critical hit damage, making ether attacks do more damage and go through enemies rather quickly. As you can see from these master skills, this is more about doing damage and waiting patiently for the right moment. There are not many skills out there as of now that will do with raising ether damage, such as a skill similar to Ultimate Kikong, but having critical damage is always a nice thing because it builds up the chain attack gauge. And since Royal Summoner has a nice 30% critical hit rate already, it'll surely help with DPS. For other master skills, Protector's Pride is good for having another way to quickly recharge arts if there are no defenders in the party. Ethereal Ability, which is a base increase of ether damage by 50%, and Cypher Edge, which increases the base critical rate by 10%. Pretty nice if you don't want to use Taya and just want raw damage with the other playable characters. If there is any class in the future DLC that has a master skill that lowers enemy ether defense, that would be greatly appreciated for this class. Now that is all the skills taken care of, so let's talk about the properties of the elementals before we go on to the arts. Elemental orbs are very important to mastering this class because this is mainly how you will do damage and have that damage increase over time thanks to the skills the class comes with. Upon using an art that is not elemental discharge, you'll obtain an elemental orb after the art is finished. You can only hold up to 3 orbs at a time, so when you use an art that is an elemental discharge, the orb that was first spawned is discharged and does its effects. You can use the aforementioned elemental discharge to discharge the first 2 orbs spawned, and the Royal Summoner Talent Art discharges all 3 orbs at once. The elemental orbs have an attribute, damage multiplier, and hit effect based on the type of orb that comes through arts. Each attribute boost is added upon by the Here I Shall Stand skill. Flare gives the summoner and nearby allies a plus 5% boost when being held with a maximum of 15% increase. When discharged, the damage is doubled and does area of effect damage. This is the best orb type because it is the most effective at dealing damage to multiple enemies, as well as deal the very brief instance of yourself dealing more damage with each elemental discharge with the element boost skill. Earth reduces all damage taken by the summoner and nearby allies for 5% up to a maximum of 15%. When discharged, the damage is doubled and inflicts the toxin status. This is also very good for the damage multiplier, but the hit effect isn't so great because of how annoying it is to give debuffs on super bosses. So it isn't inherently useful until Monolith has a patch to make debuffs more effective, but it isn't very great for that reason. Aqua gives the summoner and nearby allies a regeneration buff of 1% of their max HP with a maximum of 3%. When discharged, the damage multiplier is only just 1.5 times damage, but it also heals nearby allies for that amount of damage. This is unfortunately the weakest orb because of how little the regen effect lasts because you want to dish out orbs like crazy, and the hit effect is based on the user's healing power, which Taion is sort of good with, but the class is an outfit as a healer and thus not the most useful. Now let's get into the meat and potatoes of the class, which are the arts. The arts are honestly very easy to understand and get the hang of, but it takes a lot of patience to master since Royal Summoner uses time-based cooldown timers. The first art is Summon Element, a standard AoE ether attack that summons 2 elemental orbs with 33.3% of one type appearing. Being it is incredibly hard to have 2 of the flare orb come up at every given moment. Top it off with a low damage ratio and a pretty average recharge, this isn't really one of the class's best arts. It is incredibly random what type of orb comes up, and you basically have to sit and wait for the chance to inevitably not have 2 of the flame orb. It's just an inconsistent art. The next art is Elemental Discharge, which releases all elemental orbs with a decent art power and boosts the elemental damage by 50% to 150% and does damage according to the orb's multiplier, which also does its hit effect from the released orbs, and adds the elemental boost skill, which is extremely useful to have. Overall, a required move for any Royal Summoner. The next 3 arts are actually interesting related to orb probabilities. Melia actually has differing percentages in what type of orbs spawn compared to Royal Summoner class character, which has a flat rate on the 3 arts. The flare orbs are 10% more likely to spawn than the other 2 orbs on the next 3 arts. It's something I wanted to point out because I thought it was interesting. Anyways, Shadow Stitch. One of my least favorite arts of Xenoblade 1 is actually incredibly useful for filling the talent gauge because of its positional effect. When used from behind, the move has a chance of binding the enemy. Bind is one of the strongest debuffs in the game, and if you're able to inflict it, it makes the target unable to do anything. It is very nice, but like most debuffs, super bosses resist it, and do not make it very useful in that case. The main reason I recommend this art is because of the positional filling up the talent gauge very nicely, and the art power it has. The only downside is its below average recharge speed, but 24 seconds won't take that long regardless. Starfall is a very good art to have on her. It's a great topple art, but check out that art power. It's up to 440%, and it is AoE, because it can be used more than just for toppling. But the ether attacks do more damage just from toppling anyway. It also has a nice recharge time as well. Overall, a very good art I would recommend all Royal Summoners have. And then there's power effects. This stance art boosts power dealt by 80% and damage taken by 40%, at the cost of this extremely pitiful recharge time. I have to ask, why would you put this on Royal Summoner where Shadow Stitch can gain talent gauge and Starfall does such high damage anyway? So much of this class relies on recharge time to become really powerful, and unfortunately, power effect doesn't benefit the class in any way for that. And the talent art is one of the strongest talent arts in the game. Element Genesis. It is basically elemental discharge, but not only does it have an extremely huge AoE around the user when the art is used, but it boosts all elemental discharges with an insane 750 to 1050% art power damage. That is incredibly strong and is basically the whole point of why keeping Shadow Stitch on despite the debuff not going off. Even if you don't have a lot of elementals, the damage done is incredibly insane. For Master Arts, I particularly want to focus on arts that have a short cooldown and either focus on positionals or deal out critical hits. For that reason, I'm putting Jackal Claw next to Shadow Stitch because its high critical rate mixes very well with the positional, and you can gain a lot from it very quickly with its high art power and recharge. And then I'm either putting Mighty Beat or Tri-Slash next to Starfall, because they're nice reliable combo moves with Tri-Slash hitting anywhere around the enemy instead of just being to the side, which makes for a nice quick topple. Mighty Beat is even stronger and combines very well with the high art power of Starfall, making it useful for a fusion arc smash combo finisher. The only issues it generates is a lot of aggro, so only use it during instances when you are confident in not being attacked. And the final art is Aquamine next to Elemental Discharge. This is the best stance art in the game because of how useful it is for support, because it stacks with Aqua Elemental, giving nearby party members a nice boost of HP, as well as making recharge overall a lot faster, which is what Royal Summoner needs for elementals to go all out quickly. Other Master Arts consider are Flame Lord, Aerial Slash, Glitter Stream, Hydroblast, and Ring of Roses. Flame Lord is a great option for having more than one positional on the field for sure. It has a quick recharge and does a good amount of damage from the front, which is increased further. The only reason why I don't have it out is having Mighty Beat does incredible damage just from the Fusion Arts smash alone. Plus, my crit rate will help me gain the talent gauge much quicker, and that way I won't have to move to the front of the enemy to get my positional off. But an even better positional I feel is Glitter Stream combined with Starfall. Even though you won't get the insanely high smash damage, Glitter Stream has some pretty great damage to go along with the high damage of Starfall. The only issue with this art is the below average recharge time. Aerial Slash is interchangeable from Jackal Claw for the most part besides the animations, but Jackal Claw has the more consistent damage, so I'm going with this. Hydroblast is a nice ether art with a pretty high art power and low recharge, plus it has at least 50% chance to go through enemy ether defense, which is very nice for this kit. This art works very well if you aren't using a crit rate based kit with Jackal Claw and Aerial Slash, and just want to bypass defenses that way. The only issue is the blowdown effect not occurring as often during super bosses. And finally, Ring of Roses is a field-based art that only deals with increasing the recharge of your arts by 50%. This may sound much better than Aquamine, but the issue is attacks in general don't do well by just standing in one place because of how much you have to constantly move around the enemy. Plus, Aquamine's regeneration buff to nearby party members is just more helpful than standing in a field effect in most circumstances. That is just a lot of ours to take in. So let's move on to the gems, which are pretty self-explanatory. Analyze weaknesses is Royal Summoner's bread and butter. Having high crit damage is very nice because it makes enemies die quicker, and since this kit is more oriented to dealing critical hits, Analyze weaknesses is very important. Empowered combo is also very important because canceling arts boosts regular art power, and canceling into another art with empowered combo on will do even more power. And then Steel Cleaver for a standard boost to attack damage, which is useful for any attacker doing a lot of damage. I see people put on Dispersed Bloodlust as well to reduce the aggro effects of Mighty Beat, but as long as you have a Crimson Lance or Zephyr, aggro really shouldn't be much of an issue. Next, we will look at accessories. If you happen to have the DLC, then having the Accomplished Hairpiece is a must-have for Royal Summoner. The accessory bypasses enemy ether defense by 35%, which is very useful for doing ether damage very quickly, especially if you're taking advantage of Flare's AoE effect to do a lot of damage to surrounding enemies. Thermal Headgear is also a must-have for Royal Summoner. Having a high crit rate means that you build your talent gauge much faster, and thus beat the enemy much quicker. And finally, Lune Rings for 100% boosted fusion art damage, making that Starfall plus Mighty Beat fusion combo that much stronger. Other accessories include attack increasing accessories like Saturni Rings, Fiber Wraps that increase damage against launch enemies, and Break Brooch or Accomplished Fan Braces, which is nice if you're using a break art to lower the enemy's break resistance. And if you're using Defenders, a Fraternal Badge for a ton of increased recharge time, and the General Crystal Earrings for getting the chain attack gauge more quickly. In general, it's the most important to make sure your attacks hit, but having a way of recharging your arts quickly, getting a ton of critical hits, having a way to bypass either defenses, and a proper management of your elemental orbs to get the most out of everything is how you would use Royal Summoner. So let's see how the class works practically. So I'm gonna fight Killacorn Grand Depths first because of its with its lower ether defense. I would have been able to take him out easier with Royal Summoner. It makes it easier to just deal with him easily. My strategy here is to go behind him and use Shadow Stitch to build up my talent gauge a little bit, as much as I can. I go for the Toppa right here. Unfortunately, most of the stuff didn't really go that well because Grand Depths was aggroing the attackers all the time, and I don't know why it won't aggro on Mio, but whatever. Probably high damage caps or something, even though like he has really high physical defense, as you can see right on that clip right there on the top right corner. So I go for the launch here, so I end up going for the fusion art for Shadow Stitch, and I use Aquamine here to build up my talent gauge as well. Or not my talent gauge, just to build up my arts in general. But as you can see, he takes a lot of damage here from my ether arts, and that's why he keeps aggroing me all the time, because like, oh, doing a lot of damage equals, oh, I'm gonna aggro you. So it's a little bit of a tough fight, but I ended up getting into it. I'm gonna actually cut this one a little bit short when I get to the chain attacks, because like I end up beating him anyways. In probably just a moment here. This fight was really easy anyway. Grand Depths is not even a hard fight at all. Like, as you can see, the weakest super boss out of them all. Anytime now. Oh, okay, that's... Whoa, that's weird. Grand Depths kind of was like shaking a little bit here. So I end up doing Elemental Discharge right here. I think what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to build up my talent gauge as much as I can so I can use up Elementals here just to show it off. Not at the point yet though. And okay, there we go. There's the chain attack. So now let's go ahead and go on to Dreadward Nizund. So Nizund actually has a little bit higher ether defense. His ether defense is 0 and not like negative ether defense like Grand Depths is, so it should be a much more even fight. So I go with the same strategy again, go behind him to build up talent gauge with Shadow Stitch, and then go for Starfall to build up another elemental orb. And I go for Aquamine. That's kind of my starter thing right here. I just go for those two things, just to get him off quickly. So the thing about Nizunt is that he's notorious for moving around, like at certain points of his HP. So it makes it really hard for me to get off my talent gauge art, building art with Shadow Stitch. I managed to get up half of here, but it's going to be a lot more challenging later on. And of course he has that invincibility buff right there, which is really annoying. Nizunt is honestly really easy. It's just that he has a lot of annoying stuff that makes the fight take a long time. What do I do here? I guess I end up going for Elemental Discharge, and then, like, I go for, I'm just building up elementals here. I think I'm trying to see if anybody can launch here. Yeah, there we go. So basically when I launch, my brain tells me, oh, you have to do a fusion art here because you'll do a lot of damage from him being launched. And now I'm over here at a weird angle because he moved behind me, and it's just really hard to attack him anyways. But he ends up aggroing me in a second here because of my high damage output with Starfall and like a whole bunch of other things. Yep, there he goes. He aggroes me. But then something really great happens. Somebody toppled him and then ended up launching. So I end up getting the fusion art there and into the Element Genesis. I should have waited until I had more elementals there in order for me to do that easily. He still aggroes me. Unfortunately, I do take a death here in a second because, okay, he goes for Infernal Flame, but for some reason it doesn't hit me. I would die from that, even though I have a useless skill that, like, doesn't do anything else. So he kills me with Crushing Bite. Unfortunate that I lose all my buffs for that skill that boosts elemental damage. I end up going for the chain attack here in a second. I'm just trying to build up my elementals as much as I can. Oh, he goes for that stupid invincibility buff again. It's so annoying. And then he ends up moving again, which is really surprising. He moves at a pretty good place, I'll be honest. It was really easy for me to get off my my Shadow Stitch and be able to build my talent gauge easier. Unfortunately, I don't do that. I end up going for the chain attack anyways, just to finish him off, because somebody's about to launch here in a second, which prompts me to go into a chain attack. And sure enough, I do, and I'm going to fast forward this a little bit, just to the point where I feel like it's necessary for me to talk. So, I end up doing the same thing like normal people do. I go for, have the Shira get the 200% there, bring everybody back, and have everybody get power charge up for to power up their arts whenever they start attacking. And, I don't know what Ouroboros I did. I think it was Noah's. Yeah, now that I think about it, it was Noah's. So I just, like, try to build up here. I should stop in a second. I think right now. Yep, right here. So I end up going for a Resonant Flag here just to get just to spread the power charge and the attack up boost from Shadow Eye from good old Resonant Flag. And look at that damage right there. Crimson Land's pretty great. Even with the negative 25% bonus, I have Ultimate Kikong on this one, so... But why are we talking about Crimson Lance here? We're talking about Royal Summoner. That's how it's supposed to go. Alright, so I ended up going for Tyon, and I go up for the Smash Attack, which, check out how much damage this does. Okay, I got the overkill there, and I got Cap right there. That's some pretty insane damage for a Royal Summoner to do, just from a Smash Attack alone. I mean, Smash Attacks really do a lot of damage like that. I also should mention I'm doing all these fights on normal mode. This is not hard. I actually should have mentioned that at the beginning, but yeah, this is normal mode. That's why all these guys are dying easily, because of chain attacks. So, but yeah, that should be the end of the fight here. Thank you guys so much for watching again. My Royal Summoner is a good class, and I hope you guys really enjoyed my commentary and all that. So, I don't know if I'm gonna be doing any more class guides. I just wanted to share because like I love Melia and stuff like that. But anyways, check out my other stuff and yeah, take care everybody. See you on the other side.